Yeah,
Okay.
I clicked right on the one, the reminder that Trin put out. I clicked on the link on the reminder.
The second
And,
link. Right?
yeah, the first time it wouldn't let me in. It said the host had a different meeting in progress. And then I waited about a minute, and then I closed that window and tried a second time, and it worked.
Okay, did you hear that, Kun M?
Yes, I can hear that. Yeah, you can continue if you would like to. Yeah, you can
Jeff
start.
used the old one. Okay, it would be good if others came too. ท่านอาจารย์ยังอยู่ไหมคะ
ยังอยู่ค่ะ
ค่ะเราจะแก้ปัญหายังไงไม่ทราบ
ค่ะตามสบายค่ะ
Yeah. Okay, Jeff, did you have anything you wanted to speak to Ajahn about?
I don't have anything specific. I usually just kind of tune in and listen to what's the conversation. When I do remember to tune in, this time of day it's easy to forget.
Yes, I know. I'm just trying something else here. Okay. Okay, Tanajan, I have been on DSG speaking with Sarah a bit about the conversation we had last week about Pachaya conditions, and also just a sec. Okay, and also about what gamma condition and Nanakanika condition, are they the same?
I think that listen to Dhamma means to listen to understand the truth of what is now appearing as not self. If we just think about the words, about conditions, and can it lead to the understanding of that which is now appearing? That is the point. For example, what is there now? See, do we have to think of condition first? Or do we have to understand talking about the truth of that which is covered up from life to life, years? That's why just to understand of the truth of no self, that's the point. So no matter what we are talking about, just to let go the clinging to the idea of self. So now, when you are talking about conditions, it means that there is the understanding of that which is now appearing, how much enough to let go or not yet, until the understanding of any words about the truth can condition the understanding because of the Sankharakanda, the Cetasikas, which now arising with each moment of Citta.
Yes.
So that's why we can talk about just one condition at a time to understand what is there as it is. For example, when we talk about reality, we are talking about conditions as well, but no name. We don't specify this is what name and that is what name, but we begin to understand the conditions for any reality which is now appearing. Otherwise, nothing can arise at all without conditions for its arising. It brings about the understanding of no self, little by little. No one who can make this moment be such it is right now. So the point is that not enough understanding to let go the idea of something in that which appears, no matter through what Dawi is. The thinking, no understanding that this moment of that which experiences the idea or thought about such and such, and then gone because of not understanding the moment of arising and falling away so very fast. It brings about the idea of something as soon as it's there because of ignorance. That's why what condition, see, we can talk about the condition of this moment, little by little, one by one, to understand that even that which is now appearing, without condition, it cannot be there because it cannot arise. And this is life, from moment of birth to death. Keep on going to next life, on and on and on, as long as there are conditions, as long as there are conditions. And one condition is avijja,
Yes.
the core of all reality is now appearing, because there must be the ignorance that condition attachment, and it condition their birth of whatever is now by conditions, craving for it, and then with avijja all the time.
Yes.
By what paccaya, see, one by one, because there are so many cetasikas arising together, and they are different cetasikas, different condition as well. For example, pasta is there now. See, pasta, cetasika. It is conditioned by way of ahara paccaya, like the food which bring about the other moment of different realities, even at that very moment when it arises.
You said,
Instantly together as sahajata paccaya,
yeah,
one can make it, and this is what meant by conditions.
right. So the, for instance, needs to be pasa in order for there to be conditions for seeing to arise, for instance. And the pasa arises at the same moment as, well, I'm not, yeah, the pasa arises at the same moment as Jetana. Is that right? They condition each other.
Without pasa, can Chetana experience the same object as Chitta and other Cetasikas at once in a moment together?
No.
And this is the meaning of Dhamma, no one, no self, nothing. Gone completely, never to arise again in samsara.
Yes.
And this will lead to more letting go, even from the very beginning, that it cannot be anything or anyone at all, because it's there and then gone completely, never to arise again. And that's not paccaya. See, so many paccaya that we don't name it, but it's there when there is understanding. And when it comes to the word, one has the understanding of that as one has learned about it and understand it, but didn't talk about the name yet. That's all.
Right, right. I can see that, because there are many conditions involved, I'm sure, in the arising of any Dhamma. And yet it's, as there's a little bit more intellectual understanding, I'm finding that there's a little more interest in learning some of the conditions, just I'm going to say the major ones, but I know they're all necessary. But yeah, that's, and yet I realize they don't, you give them a name and think about them, that gives you some sort of framework, and then it really doesn't matter again.
For example, interest, is it real? The interest,
Yes.
is it a reality?
Yes.
What
Chanda.
kind of reality is it?
Cetasika.
What cetasika?
Chanda.
See, we can talk about that. When there
Yes.
is discussing about this moment, it brings about the understanding of whatever is there. Without chanda, it cannot bring about the understanding to enlightenment, the moment of enlightenment at all. That's why it is itipata. See, one does not just learn the name and the word, but understanding this moment.
Mm-hmm.
When it's there, how many cetasikas and what, and what is its function. Each one has its own function.
Yes, yes.
No one. This is more confidence little by little from understanding, built up by a moment of understanding. No one, see, and it takes time to understand the truth, which does not appear as it appears now. Like that which is seen appears people and things. What about that? Not the nature of that which can impinge on the eye and condition the moment of seeing to arise and see it. That's all gone completely.
Yes.
So different world, the world of truth, the world of realities, absolute realities, no one and no thing at all. That's why before the idea of self can be completely, absolutely eradicated, it's one's own understanding to understand how much understanding is there now about that which appears now. A little or more than before after hearing and considering it wisely. All depends on this.
More?
Without hearing, without considering, how can there be the understanding of the truth of what is now appearing as things and people?
It can't be.
That's why understanding the great virtues of Buddha, when there is the understanding of the absolute truth that can be directly experienced, not just learning about it by listening and considering. Because the truth can be directly experienced, but not anyone tried so hard to experience it. But the panya develops little by little. Any moment of panya arising, it let go the idea of self. Very, very little.
Yeah.
Until completely, exactly, absolutely no more strong understanding of permanent things like people and things around like that.
Yeah, I can see that. Without the intellectual understanding, even at seeing, for instance, we think seeing arises so frequently that we think it's there all the time. But if there's no intellectual understanding, that seeing arises and then, performs its function, it sees, and then that's all it does, and then falls away immediately. Without that intellectual understanding, there's no way possible to understand the characteristics of seeing directly or the conditions for seeing.
It's there, that which is seen, how much understanding of it, panya knows exactly. Right. But there can be a moment of realizing the truth that we have heard from the very beginning. No one. So what does it mean? No thing. What does it mean? See? It's of this moment, but not unknown, but not known yet. That's all. But when panya develops, it let go that which covers up the truth little by little until the object appears as it is. Understand?
Right. When we say nothing there, in that sense, we mean that whatever is there, the seeing, the experiencing a visible object, lasts so short and then it falls away, that there is.
And this is just the story about seeing. So we consider the truth, nothing there. What does it mean? Nothing. It means that everything which now appears is not there at all. Nothing. But even so, that is that which experiences, right?
Yes.
And that can be known directly about its truth, that it doesn't have any shape and form at all. Nothing to think about how it looks at all. But at that moment, at that very moment, it experiences an object but the object does not appear, only the characteristic which is there as it knows or it experiences is there to be known that it's not I at all. It's only that, no shape and no form, but it experiences an object. But the object does not appear, the characteristic of that which experiences is there to be studied more and more, little by little, until the characteristics of that which arises and falls, not just it's there, but the truth begin to dig down to the anusaya, which is there, and understand that actually no thing, no world, because nothing is there. See, it's just like that. But Panya is not enough to understand at that moment because it does not appear as it is. Whenever there is seeing, it appears as the world, the things, people all around. See, that is not the truth of just that which is seen and that which experiences. Until then, Panya develops to detach from taking it as something, and then awareness of a characteristic begins to understand that. Because there must be the intellectual understanding to understand that with direct awareness. It is the beginning of another stage of experiencing the reality with awareness and right understanding of that which appears as a reality. And that is Pativeda, but not, excuse me, that is Pariyati, but it's not Pativeda yet. It takes quite a long time to let go, not to try so hard to understand or to have it appear as we are talking about.
Mhm.
And this is what is meant by study Dhamma, because Dhamma is now appearing, but no understanding, no study, until the words of the truth brings about the truth of it little by little, and understanding begins to develop. Means that it begins to understand the truth of that which is now appearing little by little. It works itself, no one there.
Right.
I just want to say, Sawadika Ajahn, we had quite a lot of we had a lot of trouble joining this morning. It took 15 minutes and a dozen attempts until Trin sent a new password, so other people maybe a new login, so other people may be having problems too.
Me too.
Yes, you had the same. Yeah, so I think
I did.
Could you ask Trin to check the password if the spelling here seems to be different?
Actually, Jeff and I each got in a different way. So it'll have to be straightened out. What's the way to do it?
It took 15 minutes and a dozen attempts until Trin sent a new number. Yes.
Right. It took me several attempts too. Jeff's the smart one. He just got in.
You have to be very keen to join Dhamma discussions. Yes. Anyway, very glad to hear you and yes.
Thanks, but John, what you've been saying is it's very helpful. Always good to be reminded of the importance of listening and considering and just knowing that Panya will work its way.
Hi, Constantine. I have a question.
Please.
When I think realities in terms of Abhidhamma, I depend on.
Excuse me, what do you mean by in terms of Abhidhamma?
I somehow think Abhidhamma. I often think realities in terms of 5 khandhas and 80 chittas. So in the case of sense door processes, yeah, there are 17 chittas, yeah. But last week, you asked me whether vitaka accompany the chaku vinyana chitta or not. And I couldn't understand the significance of that question. Because for me, seeing means at least a few rounds of 17 chittas. That was my understanding. But when you ask me a question, whether a single eye consciousness is accompanied by vitaka or not, then somehow I've realized that seeing doesn't mean that there are 17 chittas as a process. So possibly seeing means just one single moment of chitta. And I'd like to know if it is the case or not. Seeing just means one chitta, nothing but one chitta.
As only a chitta arises in a moment, or how many chittas arise in a moment? A moment.
It's just one chitta moment.
So the moment of seeing is not the moment of the chitta, right?
Oh, yeah, yes.
So by studying the process experiences and all, no matter through eyes or ears, or that is pawanka, is that viti chitta?
Yeah, bhavanga and three bhavanga and with
Yeah, and more than that, but before any moment of experiencing what is there now, it has to be by its process.
yes.
From we understand by pawanka that it does not experience that which is seen now, right?
Yes.
So the first moment of viticita, can it be seen instantly?
No, there must be at least three bhavangas.
And after that, what is that? After 3 moments of pawanka has fallen away, can it be seen instantly after the pawankupacheta, the end of pawanka? Can there be seeing instantly after that? Impossible.
Yeah.
This is the way Buddha has enlightened the truth of each moment of how many cetasikas arising with such and such moment of citta, like the moment of pawanka, more cetasika than the moment of the idle process, when it's not the javana yet. See, this is the great virtues of the great wisdom of the Buddha. But why we study that, to know that that is the virtues, the great virtues, wisdom of the Buddha. We cannot know that. But we learn to understand that actually, no matter what moment in life, it is not self, it is not me, it's only a conditioned reality. And without that which can experience an object, can there be life? Not at all. No world, because no experiencing. And who can stop the arising of the reality which experiences? No one. Impossible. But the reality, absolute reality, means that no one can make it arise. No one can keep it because it arises and falls away instantly by nature. That's why only one moment of citta can it be known.
Yeah.
Really? Through what process?
I think it's possible.
And how many cittas in a process which experience an object, the same object?
17 minus
No. 17 means the period of citta, the age or what you say. I cannot think of the word, the life of what is the Chitta lasts, arupa, which arises, lasts for 17 moments of Chitta, but it doesn't mean that 17 moments experience the object, because Bhavanga, okay, let us start from the Atita Bhavanga, just to show that when it's there, when Rupa arises there, when will it end and God fallen away? See, so that Rupa which arises with the birth consciousness, 17 moments and gone. That's why it doesn't mean that the 17 Chitta experience an object. Only the those Chittas, which is not Bhavanga, can experience the object.
Yes.
But we come from the Atita Bhavanga. So we take that, we think that the arupa or an object is experienced by 17 moments of Chitta. That's not right.
Yeah.
Because that shows the age or the period or the life of the what you call it, of rupa, which lasts for 17 moments. No matter it arises with Patisanti Chitta, Bhavanga Chitta, Patisanti Chitta, it goes on 17 moments of Chitta and then fall away. So the moment of Bhavanga, fast asleep, nothing appear, but arises and experiences which is not death yet, not death moment, but it does not experience the object through the 6 doorways. No dream, no world. Bhavanga performs a function. So what Chitta can see, the question is about seeing. Because each moment of that which experiences performs its proper function. Like Bhavanga cannot experience any object with the 6 doorways at all, but experience it, which is unknown in this life because it's the object of last life before death. No one can change that moment. But as soon as it's not Bhavanga, it experiences an object. So after Bhavanga, what Chitta is there? Just after the last Bhavanga. Huh? What Chitta is there?
Sakadwara Avajana.
And please.
Sakadwara Avajana Chitta.
See, so what is that Chitta? The phone is not quite smooth. I can hear not smoothly, but that's why I keep on asking again. Avachana Chitta.
Yes.
And the first process cannot be the sense-thou process because it thinks or it experiences the same object which is accumulated to be object of Chitta, which does not experience the object of Bhavanga. See, it has to be mind-thou process. Who knows? Unknown. So from then on, there are many processes until the process of sense-thou process. So Bhavanga cannot experience visual object. Bhavanga cannot experience sound. The first Chitta, which experiences the object which is not the object of Bhavanga, has to be that which impinges when it's the sense-thou. It has to impinge on one of the sense-thou. The sense-thou. It can be the eye door or ear door or whatever. See, and it does not smell, it does not see, it just know that something there. Like we are at the house and the guest is at the gate. We don't know yet who's there, but the idea of someone there is, and that is the function of Avachana Chitta. Just begin to wake up and know something there, but not experience, not yet seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting. Only a moment. So it can it be known? Not by us. See, this is the great distance between the understanding of the one who is not the Samma Sambuddho, even the Pratibhuta, doesn't have such great virtuous Buddha. So we learn about, we can know and taught us to understand that way Dhamma is no one and no self and no thing. Because it's only different realities, Paramada Dhamma, absolute truth. So after Avajana Citta has fallen away, it conditioned the seeing or the hearing instantly after it has fallen away. So only a moment of seeing, which really sees, performing the function of experiences just that, the characteristic which impinge on the eyes or ears or whatever. See, only one moment and then fall away, which condition the next citta, which experience the same object but not see. That's why a moment of seeing, a moment of sampatichana, a moment of santirana, see, by conditions, anantara pacaya and samanantara pacaya. Nobody can make it different from the way it is. So when we talk about seeing, only a moment of seeing, can it be a flower or things? Not at all. And where is that which can impinge on the eyebase? Without the four primary rupas, Patavi, Vayu, Tato, Apo, can there be that which can impinge on the eyebase? It's there, but the solidity of the Mahapatavi cannot impinge on the eye at all. Only one reality which is there with the four primary rupas can impinge on it. And see just arise and see. So it cannot be a flower or anything at all. Only one moment thinking about that. How can it be shape and form? But after it has arising and falling away continuously, very, very rapidly, what is seen is just the shape and form of different colors. With sanya cetasika arises with that citta which sees, marks and remembers. And each citta arises with sanya cetasika, arise and remember and marks the object until it's known as even the word, but it's known as shape and form as something different from different ones. So how many cetasikas arise with this citta and how many cetasikas arise with that citta? No one can know at all without studying the teaching and understanding that what panya at that level can understand how much by conditions. Even 7 cetasikas, who knows? Now at the moment of seeing. And after that, instantly, more than 7. And what can experience that object without seeing, but performing the receiving the same object, even it does not see, but it receiving the same object because of vitakka cetasika.
And what I'd like to know is, when you use the word seeing, are you referring to just one Chaku Vinyana or 70 moments of chittas? That's I'd like to know most.
In a process, when they talk about a process, it means that that object is still there, not falling away yet. That's why it can condition at the moment after seeing arises and experience it and performing different function from seeing. That's why we learn about each citta has its own function. Panchatavara vachana or avachana citta doesn't see, doesn't hear, but it knows that an object is there at that doorway. To condition a moment of arise and experience that through that doorway. And there must be Phassa Cetasika, see,
Yes.
to which experiences an object too. And it depends on what object Phassa contacted. So the other Cetasika and Citta arises and experience that object, but performing different function. For example, we think that there is Citta, which sees all the time, but actually not as it is, not as the enlightened of the Buddha, to understand each reality as it is of each moment. Otherwise, there cannot be the best idea of at all without the understanding of learning about the truth, to experience directly about the truth, and to enlighten the Ariya Satya, the Four Noble Truths. That it's now the path unknown, that each moment of understanding, even intellectual understanding, will lead on to the moment of enlightenment, the truth of the Four Noble Truths.
Okay, related with this question, I'm wondering why there is Manasikara and Chetana occur with, for instance, Chaku Vinyana Chitta. What do Manasikara and Chetana do at the moment of pure seeing?
That's why we learn to understand not only a moment of seeing, but what are there too. Because seeing cannot arise by itself without any condition, right? And there are many conditions for a moment of citta which arises. For example, what citta which sees? Can it be kusala or akusala or kiriya? See, that's why we learn about chati. When it's there, what kind of citta is there? The result or the cause. Otherwise, we cannot understand the truth of no self at all. It's the I who hear, who see, and who think about that. But to learn about the truth of each citta will bring about that no one can change it from the way it is. That's why a moment of citta arising, it has to have cetasikas as conditions by way of different conditions. So there cannot be just with phassa to condition moment of citta, see? But there must be other reality, other cetasika, which also experience the object, but not as the chief of experiencing the characteristic of that which appears as different ones. Each reality has its characteristic, and only citta, that is the chief of experiencing, can experience the characteristic, the different characteristic of each reality. So phassa arises with citta together, and phassa perform the function of contacting. Otherwise, the other cetasika and citta cannot experience that object. It depends on what phassa contacts. So the citta and cetasikas with phassa arise and experience the same object with different function. So when we talk about phassa, and then we talk about other 6 cetasikas, right? So now you'd like to talk about what? After phassa.
Chetana and Manasikara.
Cetana first. What is cetana? See,
Yes.
it's there, but we don't know it at all that is there, because usually what can be known is cetana, which is kusala or akusala.
Yes,
Is
yes,
right.
yes.
But cetana arises with each citta. It performs different function. When it arises with lopa, it performs the function of wanting to have such object, but not lopa. But the intention is there.
Yeah.
who just want that object. But when it is vipaka, it's conditioned by a karma, so it does not perform the function of when it arises with lopa and tosa. Intention to do this, intention to speak, intention to such and such. But it is like the head of the student, see. So it performs the function of coordinate the other Chitasika and Chitta to experience the object. See, even to experience the object, it needs the coordination of a reality, which earth, or which like the head student, see, perform its function, not the other Chitasika. To experience and to perform their functions, because there are not only one Cetasika as Phassa, or only Chitta, there must be more, and at least 7 Cetasikas arising with a Chitta. So now Cetana is not Akusala and Akusala because the karma condition that seeing to see that which is object of such moment of such vipaka, such karma to condition such moment of experiencing such object. No expectation at all. By conditions. Who knows what would be the next object or what would be the object tomorrow or this month. But karma performs the function because so many karmas, and only the one who is ready to condition such a moment is there, to condition seeing, and other vipaka citta, which follows the seeing, after seeing has fallen away, one by one moment with different cetasikas. So now we have talked about intention, right?
Yes.
There can be vipaka, intention vipaka arising with vipaka citta conditioned by the same karma.
Yes, yes.
So karma condition citta and cetasikas to experience such object. That's why no one, no choice. Conditions are there, unknown, and takes it for permanent self, always there. But actually, no I and no self, only different realities. What's the next?
Now, manaskara.
Okay. Sometimes you pay attention to something, but not everything, right? Like even at moment of seeing,
yes,
you pay attention to what? See, and the intention is that which is called in Pali manasikara. That's all.
No.
Attention there. Different from intention.
So manaskara is different from vitaka. Vitaka is more like actual thinking.
No, because I there's no word to explain reality because it's so very subtle. That's why even we talk about sweetness or spicy, when it's not tasted or when it's not smelled, no one can understand. It's corrected. No word to explain. Even at moment of that has gone, no word to explain to the others. Only at moment when it's there, and citta experiences beyond word. That's why we talk about cetasika, which is so very subtle, and we are trying to understand with some words, how many words, depending on which word can bring about a little more understanding. So intention is cetana, and attention is manasikara, and vitaka is that which touch the object. Because phassa just lightly touch. Phassa only that contact, but that which touch is vitaka. That's why after seeing is gone, it touches the object. at once for
Oh,
that,
oh, oh.
but sampadichana to arise and experience the object without seeing, but experiencing the object as receiving
Yeah.
from that which experiencing it, the seeing. So
Okay.
vitaka arises with almost each citta. Usually when we don't talk about jhana, vitaka arises with each citta. So the details of each citta is known, experienced directly, enlightened by the Buddha. And he taught about that which can be known. That's why it's compared to few leaves in his hand, but his wisdom is like the leaves in the forest. But this way is the way to understand the truth of no self in the beginning. Because without the intellectual understanding, there's no panya to be able to experience the truth of that which is now, right now, so close, arising and falling away all the time.
So, for instance, at the idle process, yeah, except for Bhavanga and Chakvinyana, the other chittas are Dhamma Ramana. So like Sampatichana, Santirana, Vatapana, and Javana, these are Dhamma Aramana, despite the fact that they are objects.
Excuse me, I cannot hear it well. You mean Dhamma Ramana or what?
Dhamma Ramana. So
When it is Chakvinyana process, it is Rupa Ramana. The Rupa here means
I know the object are Rupa, but when you say when you talk about these chittas, except for Bhavanga and Chakvinyana, yeah, can we say that other chittas are object of the mind process?
No, not yet, not yet. That's why we better understand each word clearer and clearer. For example, what is the object of Bhavanga? Can it be visible object right now as it's seen?
No, it's from the previous life.
Impossible. So Bhavanga cannot experience what is there in this world at all, right? And at moment when there is seeing, can there be other reality like hearing and thinking only at moment of seeing? Impossible. That's why the way to understand each citta as only in a moment. That's why Bhavanga cannot experience what is there, the object of this world. And Avachana has its function as to begin to know what is there at the doorway, whether it is the eye door or ear door, or whether it smell or whatever. But it does not smell, it does not see, right? It's only knowing what is there at the doorway. Avachana, to that object which is there. If the object does not impinge on the best, eye best, or ear best, can there be avachana?
No.
There are two kinds of avachana. The sense of avachana, panchadvara avachana, and the mind of avachana. See?
Yes.
That's right. Learning to understand each moment and different moment only once in samsara, but perform the same function because it's the same citta. Like seeing cannot be hearing, it has to be seeing. Even it's not now the same one as before, but it's the same kind or same category.
I think there are a couple of things that you are mixing up. So firstly, as Ajahn said before, the rupa lasts for 17 times as long as a cheetah, but it's not 17 cheetahs that experience the rupa. because first of all, the three Bhavanga citas don't experience the rupa, they experience their own object.
Yeah.
And then from the sense door adverting consciousness onwards, those citas experience the rupa. But it depends when the rupa had impinged on the eye sense and other factors as to how many citas then experience the object. For example, the process may finish before the Javana citas, or immediately after the Javana citas, or after the Tadaramana citas. So the rupa lasts as long as it lasts for 17 times the length of a citta, but it's not 17 cittas that experience the rupa. And the next point is Dhammaramana refers to the objects experienced through the mind door processes. So when we're talking about the eye door process, nothing to do with Dhammaramana, because only visible object is the object. So
No. Here I'm saying, I'm using the term Dhammaramana in the sense of ayatana.
but Dhammaramana is not ayatana, so we need to distinguish them carefully. So any reality is an ayatana when it arises. So at the moment of seeing, visible object is an ayatana, eye sense is an ayatana, citta is ayatana, cetasikas that arise with the citta are ayatanas. They all meet and associate at that moment. This is ayatana, but Dhammaramana refers to the objects of cittas, any object that is experienced through the mind door, reality or concept. So concept can never be ayatana because it's not real, it doesn't arise, but it can be the object of cittas in the mind door. It can be Dhammaramana. So we need to distinguish between these terms. Often in dictionaries, they talk about them like as if they are the same, but quite different terms. So when we're talking about the idol process, no Dhammaramana. There are Dhammas and the Rupa is the Aramana, but it's not the Dhammaramana.
Or just like, for instance, Sampatichana, Santirana, Votapana, are they not the object of the Mano Ayatana?
So first of all, in the idol process, they're the cittas that arise and experience the visible object after seeing consciousness. In the mind-door process that immediately follows the idol process, the object is the same visible object, the same sound that was experienced, the replica of it, the photocopy of it, the identical object. Is Sampatichana the object of cittas now in the mind-door process? I don't think so. For the Buddha, yes. For the very wise, it could be the object of understanding. But like now, it's just thinking about the idea of Sampatichana. So it's just a concept of Sampatichana that appears or is experienced in the mind or process, or is the Dhammaramana, not the Sampatichana itself.
Just like, I used to have a very naive idea that when we see something, there would be a few or several rounds of Chakra Dwara process. And then there would be mind or processes. That was my idea. But what I really would like to know is when Achan or you use the term seeing, does it refer to a whole Chakdor process or one single moment of Chak Vinyana? That's I really want to know.
is just the reality of Chaku Vijnana, just the seeing consciousness which sees visible object, an instant and then gone. So it seems that seeing lasts a long time and we attach a lot of importance, but it's such a brief moment that sees, because the other cheetahs in that process, they are still the idol process cheetahs, but they don't see anything, only the seeing consciousness sees. And after that idol process, Bhavanka cheetahs, and then mind or processes, many mind or processes. So it's just such a very brief moment that we find important, and it's gone instantly.
And explaining, only one chitta has the function of seeing, and that's the Chaku Vijnana. And the other chittas, sensed or process, have different functions.
Okay. That I had a wrong understanding with that process, that aspect, because whenever Ajahn or you use the term seeing, I thought about a whole process, but in fact it's just one chitta.
It's the reality which sees. And that's why often it's said, or Ajahn often says, that now the idol seeing covers up the mind door, because it seems like they're seeing all the time. It seems that the world is light all the time. But in fact, it's only light just for that one moment.
One moment.
Seeing. And the thinking is there's far more thinking. There's thinking all the time, all the day in between. So seeing and the light world appearing is just one instant. Because even when the other cheetahs experience visible object, they don't see, so light doesn't appear. They experience the visible object with their own particular functions, but they don't see it at all.
Okay. Very clear. Very important.
Good, important points to get clear, I think.
Thank you very much. Hi, Ajahn.
Yes.
I have a small question, which is not really important, but one thing I do not understand is why, for instance, kusala vipaka citta correspond to pleasant object, and aksara vipaka citta correspond to unpleasant object.
Okay. It does arise in force way in a moment succeedingly.
Yes.
Such idea about it. But it has to be understand the truth of no one and no self clear. For example, what is the object of sampatitana?
At the idol process, it's a visual object.
So can sampatitana experience the visible object? Can it?
Sampatijana, Santirana, Otapana, just a single
Just
visual.
one by one. Can sampatitana experience visible object?
Yes.
Can it see?
No, it cannot see, but it experiences a visual object.
That's why it needs vitakka cetasika, right?
Yeah.
Because it does not see, but it can experience the object that Chitta has seen in the same process.
Yes.
That's why we call it the idol process, not just one Chitta which sees. Right? So, and for Panchattavara Vachana, the Avachana moment, can it see?
No, it doesn't see.
Can it experience visible object?
Yes, it does.
By way of adverting to that object, not the other object. Can it experience sound?
No, 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 no,
Can it hear?
no.
And what about Santirana? Can it experience visible object?
Yes.
Can it see? Can it receive?
No, no. It experiences a visual object, but it doesn't see.
And can it be the receiver after seeing?
Mm.
Can it? Santirana?
Mm.
Can it?
Yeah.
Because it has its own function as
Yes.
Santirana, not Sampatichana, in the same process.
Yeah.
So no doubt about each citta has its own function, and each cetasika arising together has its own function as well, different from the other. Okay, so now the question is about just one word at a time, please.
It's about the correspondence between kusala, vipaka, chitta, and itaramana, and correspondence between aksara, vipaka, chitta, and anitaramana. I couldn't understand.
Okay.
Yes.
What is meant by itaramana?
It's pleasant object.
Okay, what can experience the pleasant object?
Present object is experienced by kusala, vipaka, chitta.
What condition it to experience the itaramana?
It must be karma.
What kind of karma?
I don't know. I cannot tell.
Kusala karma only.
Oh, yeah, kusala karma, no doubt.
See, so no doubt about what can experience what. The akusala vipaka cannot experience itaramana because it conditioned the akusala vipaka, which can experience only the nitaramana.
So aramana conditions are chitta. So aramana conditions
By way of what pachaya?
Must be aramana pachaya.
That's all. As much as it can, has to be aramana.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Thank you. It's clear. Very simple.
Hidden until the word of can open up.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Right. Daily life. Dhamma is daily life.
Yeah.
Depending on ignorance or understanding. Each moment. And patience again.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Very clear. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Ajahn, one small, slightly technical point came up on DSG. Usually always we talk about in the idle process how eye sense is the doorway. And a friend, when I mentioned this on DSG, said in the text it refers to two doorways. And I looked at one or two quotes, for example, from the Atasalani. It says when an object strikes, I'm trying to, the English isn't very easy to follow, so I'm rephrasing it. Depending on the base, the consciousness arises at heart base. And we know that Panchadwara Vajana Chitta arises at the heart base. And this signifies that each object reaches the process through two doorways. So they refer to two doorways of the Hadiyawatu and the eye base. And so it's just a technical point that when we say there's only the eye sense is the eye doorway for those cheetahs.
because of not understanding the difference between the doorway, the vara, and
the base. Yes.
place.
But in the, yes, sorry, go on.
There are how many watu are there, and how many tawara are there? They are different.
Yes, well, I would say 2 watu because hadu, most of the citas arise at the hadiya watu apart from seeing, but the eye sense is the doorway, but in the Atasalani and
because we have to understand the truth that it cannot be changed. When we talk about watu, they are only rupa.
Yes.
But when we talk about doorway, it's the doorway for citta to experience only that through that one doorway. For example, the doorway, the eye base is a rupa. It is different from the ear base. So the eye base is a reality which only the visible can impinge on it. That is the doorway to experience visible object. But where does Bhavanga Citta arise? At the Hataya Vatu. And where does the Panchatavara Vachana Citta arise? It arises at the Hataya Vatu. But when it's the seeing, it's different from other objects. That's why there are 6 Vatu for Cittas to arise. The other Citta arise at the Hataya Vatu. Only the see itself just arise at the Pasata Rupa. So the Pasata Rupa has to, what we mean, different what it is. One is the vara for the citta. No matter how many citta experience, only that object which impinges on it. The other citta which experience the same object which hasn't fallen away yet from Chakkhuvara Vachana arises at the Hataya Vatu, and seeing arises at the Pasata Chakku Pasata, and Sampatichana Sandrya and on arises at the Hataya Vatu. That's why 2 functions of the Pasata Rupa. One is the Vara and the other is Vatu. When it's Vatu, it means where Citta arises. That which citta arises at it. And so it's wrong to think that Chakkuvinyana sees arises at the Hataya Vatu. It just arises at the place which the visible object impinges on. Only.
I think that is clear, and that's why we always say that there is only one doorway, the eye sense, even though the other citas arise at the Hadiya Watu. But I checked even the Pali. I'm just wondering why it talks about 2 doorways. No, not mind door, just talking about the
Panchatavara Vachana, Chakkuvinyana, Sampatichana, Santirana, Votapana, Savana, and Tadaramana, by being doorway for those citta to experience the same object.
Yes.
One object only.
I just wonder why it says each object reaches the citas through.
When we talk about the place where it arises, the Vatu, we don't talk about the Dvara.
No, I think perhaps it's a subtle point, or maybe it's a translation that gets mixed up. But even when I looked at the Pali, it specifically refers to 2 doorways. So
possible because the rupa which hasn't fallen away can be experienced by not only one citta, but from Panchatavara Vachana, whether it is Chakkhutavara Vachana or even Chakkuvinyana, Sampatichana, experience the same one object through
and
that
still same doorway.
Experience object, we talk about 6 doorway.
Yes.
Chakkuvinyana, the vara and so on. And when we talk about Hataya, we don't talk about the doorway of experience. We talk about where it arises. That is Vatu.
Yes, it's quite strange. Even when I looked in the commentary to the Abhidhamma Sangaha, it also talked about the 2 doorways for a process. So just a minor point that's quite...
Can it be like that because that object hasn't fallen away yet? And the citta, which can experience that object, needs one doorway to experience it. Because when the object is visible object, the other doorway cannot experience.
Right. Can only be one, yes.
And it means that after the sensual process has fallen away and after Bhavanka, there must be mind process which experience the same object as the past Dvara, which is Chakudvara, experience visible object. So the first mind process also experience but not see, like somebody cannot see, but it's the same process as Chakuvinyana and Chakudvara, Avachana, and so on. But for mind, no such moment which is conditioned by vipaka to follow the seeing until the citta is conditioned to be kusala or akusala by upanishya pajaya because its time comes, but it experiences the same object as seeing and as a citta.
I think it must be referring to the idol, the idol process and the mind door that follows and experiences the visible object through the mind door. So otherwise it doesn't make sense at all. I think it must be. Yeah. Thank you.
That's what it means, yeah. That's why the visible object is experienced through 2 doorways. The first must be the sensual, and the second is mind door.
I think that's what it must be referring to, yeah, because otherwise nothing else makes sense about it. Yes, it's good to clarify that point as it's in the text, so it's important to get it right.
And this is the way to understand no one and no self.
Hi, Konstantin. I have a stupid question. I know that the Buddha helps us through Dhamma, through teaching Dhamma. But once in a while, I have an odd idea that somehow Buddha is protecting me personally. And can we say that that odd idea is totally wrong?
Okay, who's the Buddha?
Enlightened one. And who teaches
and
us.
What did he do?
He teaches us Dhamma.
What for?
Or to eliminate our ignorance.
Why did he teach Dhamma?
Yeah. Through teach Dhamma, he helps us, and I know that. But occasionally, I have an odd idea that he's somehow protecting me, protecting my life. It's a bit like Christian think that God is protecting them.
What did he say to know that he's the Buddha, the enlightened one? What did he say from his words? Otherwise, how can we know that he's the enlightened one without his words of truth?
Yeah.
So, what did he teach?
Yeah, he teaches about this moment.
All dhammas are anatta, no one and nothing. So, is there you for him to protect?
No. There is no I.
But when there is considering wisely about his word of truth, there can be the understanding of no one and no self. Even what is Buddha, great wisdom, great virtues, great compassion.
Yeah.
No one can compare. That's the meaning of the level of panya over everyone at all. So from his word, the understanding of the truth protects one from ignorance, which is the cause of all troubles.
Yes.
That is the protection, panya, but not his, but from his panya.
Yes.
His words, it can bring about the most precious thing, the understanding of the truth, which protects one, protects the accumulation from years and years ago to go on with ignorance, to begin to understand the truth.
But for instance, when I think myself, I met Dhammadhala in Indonesia, and then he taught me Dhamma using Kunina's Buddhism in daily life. And for me, it's very odd because how a Japanese met with an Australian monk in Indonesia. And then I came to Thailand and met with you. And all these incidents, somehow I make up my own story that there is somebody who is leading me to this path.
That's why study each word carefully, wisely. Who's the Buddha and what did he teach? And what about now to be understood? The truth of it as no one and nothing, as he had directly experienced as Ariya Satya. So to see the Buddha, to know him, is to understand his words, the words of truth, which is Dhamma. Dhamma is his teaching, talking about Dhamma, the absolute truth. So we pay respect to his wisdom. Because of that is the understanding of what is the truth of whatever is now appearing as no self. Less and less kusala and ignorance until that which has been accumulated for such long can be eliminated until completely, absolutely, ultimately eradicated, never to arise again. And that's why we pay respect. And it doesn't mean like he protects us from trouble or danger or anything, but from ignorance and or avijja and akusala, from panya. It does not depend on, belong to anyone. It's only that characteristic which understand arising and falling away either.
It's only the understanding of the Dhamma that is the protection. No one can protect one. The Buddha can't protect one. The Ajahn can't protect one. No, it's only the understanding. And when it's an idea, there is someone who can do the protecting. Then it's not understanding of the Dhamma.
I do understand these things, but occasionally such an odd thought arises.
Like a fantasy or clinging to the idea of someone out there who can protect because of not understanding Dhamma as Dhamma. The more understanding there is of Dhamma, the less thought there is of someone who can do anything. Because just Dhamma's conditioned to arise and fall away.
Yeah, I can see that self is the biggest problem.
And the more clinging there is to self, the more clinging there is to others or gods who can protect. And as you say, it's just the same idea.
And whenever I have dosa, it related with self, idea of self.
Very commonly.
Yeah.
Sarah, you and I have just had a little exchange on DSG. I was talking about Chaitanya that arises with Vipaka Citta. Along, yeah, there's Gamapachaya and I don't know what Chaitanya. Yeah, that would be Gamapachaya. And it arises with Vipaka Citta. And I said that I was thinking that the Chaitanya in the Vipaka Citta does not accumulate. The Chaitanya that arises with Vipaka Citta does not accumulate. And I use the word spent because it is spent and has no future force. And you indicated that's right, it does not accumulate it, but it can be a condition in other ways. Can you explain that?
So yes, the seeing or the pasa that arises with seeing, it can't accumulate because it's just result, as you say, it's spent. But for example, the pasa at that moment, it is vipaka pachya for seeing because they both arise together as vipaka. It's sahajata pachya for the other chaitasikas and chitta. It's nutriment conditions, so other conditions. And that's why I think we have to understand each condition one by one carefully, otherwise they get mixed up. And that visible object that is seen, it can be a condition for lobha, but it cannot, the seeing and the chaitanya, it can't accumulate when it's vipaka because it's the result of karma.
Right, so you're saying that I see, so that the Chaitanya that arises with Vipaka Citta by way of, among others, Sahajata Pachaya conditions, Pasa and probably Manasikara.
The chitta and the other chaitasikas, and by way of Sahajata, it Kama Pachya too, because it's Chaitanya. So it conditions by way of Sahajata Kama Pachya at every moment in life because of being Kama.
Being Kama. We've lost you for a moment, Sarah. Is anyone else frozen? No, Jeff's not. John, would you like to comment on that?
And no self and no one.
Sorry, we're having connection problems.
Do you want to finish what you were saying, Sarah?
I'm not quite sure what point I was cut off. I think I was just talking to myself at the end. So anyway, yes.
You were. I can't remember exactly what. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the Chaitanya doesn't accumulate when it's vipaka, but it conditions the other namas by way of Sahajata Kama Pachya and by way of being vipaka Pachya and by way of Anyamanya, other conditions, but not by way of accumulations, not by way of Pakatu Upanisya Pachya at that moment.
Right. And you were saying that this happens throughout life, and I take it by that you mean that the Chaitanya always conditions other Chaitasikas arising with it. Lost again. Did you want to say anything, Ajahn?
What's about?
Oh, we were talking about the Chaitanya that arises with Vipaka Citta, how the Chaitanya does not accumulate, but it conditions other Chaitasikas that arise with Vipaka-citta.
We are talking about realities, but what
Yeah,
the understanding of no self, because it's only attachment, or I think that when it's not understanding, it cannot be the wholesome moment. So there is Loba and Chanda to try to understand that, but not in the way that it's not self. That's why it keeps on moving from studying the truth of that which is experienced as not I. The characteristic which is now experiences, it's very, very difficult to know it because it just arises and experience. What is lack is understanding of the truth. That's why even we keep on talking about the story about it, not yet the moment of study, the characteristic which is not self. Can this be the point of studying, talking about no matter what, just to understand the characteristic which experiences can be known as not self, but it cannot be known at all without the intellectual understanding. The point is to understand that it's not self, but there are so many realities, but they are all hidden. Sanya is hidden, feeling is hidden, or sankhara khanda, cetasikas arising with that moment are all hidden. How can that be the object without understanding little by little about no self? That's why if we think more about the story and try so very hard to understand it, can it be clearly known as it is? No matter we're talking about cetana or about feeling, vedana, or about lopa or about everything, they are there still unknown all the time until it can condition moment of direct awareness. And what is meant by direct awareness, realities are there. So close right now, it's here. Hardness is here. It cannot be known as not a thing or something. And that which experiences are gone without any attention to the characteristic of that which just experience. That's why the point of studying is to understand the truth of no self and no one. And when we talk about the nature of the difference between the reality to be one which can experience rupa Dhamma and that which experiences nama Dhamma, it's only the word. But the truth is that what is meant by experiencing the reality which arises and experience, because when they are not there, they do not arise. How can they be known as they experiences? Each moment of experiencing is there with different characteristics of realities. That's why the moment when it's there is conditioned by understanding the truth of it, each one as not self. So we think a lot about that which cannot be known directly and that which can be known directly. Like that which appears can be known directly because it is experienced now directly, but no understanding, no direct understanding of the truth yet. That's why learning to understand just one reality at a time, as much as there can be the development of no self, little by little, stage by stage, but not rush to the end or whole of it, because they are so very, very subtle, more details of each one. For example, when we talk about Cetana, it seems or it means that there is a little understanding of Cetana as it's not vitaka, it's not as sanya, it's not as this, but it's there now. See? So there can be a moment of thinking, and thinking is not direct experiencing. It's only that which is conditioned by hearing and considering enough to think. Because when we do not discuss on the reality, just like now, no idea about reality at all, from moment of waking up to now, just about this and that all the time. Only when there are the words of the truth discussing, it brings about more understanding, a little more, to condition the way to know, to experience that as it is, which is not only the intellect understanding, but without the intellect understanding, no condition to understand what is there directly as now. See? So just understand one reality at a time as much as we can to understand it. Like Chetana, in a day, there's so many moments of Chetana, which is Kusala and Akusala. Even it is Kusala Chetana is not known. The Kusala Chetana now is not known either. See, even it's there all the time. When it arises, it's there, and then it's gone. But to understand more a little bit about each reality, it can eliminate the idea of self so very little, but it is at that from moment to moment to develop on and on, more and more to understand. That's why there can be the understanding of reality as much as there can be. Like Chetana now. There is Chetana now, but it's not known.
Right.
But in a day, so many moments of Chetana all the time. Chetana to get up, Chetana to reach out the hand to pick up this and that, Chetana to write, Chetana to speak, all Chetanas are there. But we don't talk about it enough to understand it as just a reality, not me. But the characteristic of Chetana, can it be the object of direct understanding? Depending on conditions, no expectation at all. What would be the object of direct awareness with understanding enough to understanding it as no one there at all?
That would be a high level of understanding.
That's why it can be proved or understood in a day how much understanding of what we have heard or learned. For example, from now on, there are Chetanas anytime, walking, standing, looking, or anything unknown. That's why we begin to understand how much ignorance is there from day to day, from life to life, years and years ago. And this is the way to let go the idea of trying to do something like go to the meditation center or listening to just the word without understanding that it points to this moment.
Mm-hmm.
That's why just understanding that the point is to understand no self, no me. And it's not enough as long as it's not the object, direct object.
Right.
So study to understand the truth of no self now. Understanding that Chetana is not self, it depends on condition. To be Vipaka Chetana, at moment of seeing, at moment of any moment of Vipaka, and at moment of Akusa. By then, it can condition from hearing and forget to a moment of thinking about it, remembering the word which is heard about it, and then more than that later. Even that is a Dhamma, little by little. Thinking is a Dhamma.
Yes.
Remembering now is a Dhamma.
Mm-hmm.
To this moment, little by little.
It's another Dhamma to be understood.
It's an important point which Ajahn was mentioning before, that when trying to work out the details, it's not the understanding of Dhamma as anatta now, it's just thinking about the story. And we think that
this is the wise reflection or pariyatti understanding that will lead to more and more understanding. But when it's just thinking with loba, trying to get it straight, trying to work it out, it's not the understanding of what appears right now.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
It's so natural, though, to do that.
And it's a
work it out.
It's a fine line because,
Yes.
and it's so easy to take the working out for being the wise considering, because there has to be the wise reflection. There has to be the wise considering over and over. But when it's I who would like to know it for me, then it's not the wise considering of dharmas anymore.
As you say, it's a very fine line.
And she mentioned going to meditation centers. Well, of course, there's no going to meditation, thought of going to meditation center for people here. But like the other day when I was mentioning about pariyatti and patipatti, and someone objected when I suggested practice is the wrong idea. It's not just practice in the idea of going to meditation centers, but even if there is the idea of doing something now or practicing what we've heard by repeating it, it's not the understanding that leads to patipatti, that direct understanding of realities, because it's the idea of I doing something. The practice disease, as Ajahn refers to it sometimes.
Right, and there are so many ways of wrong practice.
Yes, and it's subtle, and it can be any time, even now. Like trying to catch the meaning, trying to understand visible object right now. The practice disease, because it's motivated by the idea of self. So that's why I wouldn't use practice for a translation of patipatti.
Well, so much
or why Ajahn wouldn't use.
It comes down to, I want to understand for me, rather than I want to understand for the sake of, in order to understand the teachings.
Understanding for the sake of understanding, not so I can get it, so I can find out the meaning, so I can understand better.
Although I have to say there are times when I think the I can get it does eventually lead to more understanding.
It seems that it's the I can get it. It seems the working it out leads to more understanding, whereas in fact it's the understanding in spite of the many moments of loba and I getting it. So it's taking the I can do it, I can get it for being the wise considering, but in fact it's the wise considering, wise reflecting at other moments that leads to more understanding, not at the moments when there is loba or I trying to catch it.
Although can moments of the trying to understand, in this, the trying to understand, I've been talking about conditions. I don't sense trying to catch it, but trying to understand. There's definitely trying there. But what one hears from questioning this can lead to a degree of understanding where there, at times where there is no trying to understand.
I think the point is it always comes back to this moment. So even now, moments of trying can be understood as anatta too, just moments of thinking, usually with loba at that moment. So they are just passing dhammas. So the understanding right now, no matter what the story is more precious than working out the story. So the understanding of seeing now as just Dhamma is more precious than trying to catch the meaning or trying to work it out in detail. So it's always back to this moment, the understanding of Dhamma now as anatta.
Yeah,
So
I see what,
you understand because it's precious, or you understand because for the sake of understanding? Do you understand for the preciousness of it, or do you understand for the sake of understanding?
Are you asking-
I'm
Go ahead.
asking
me or,
anyone who wants to
oh,
answer.
I think, well, the right way is understanding for the sake of understanding. When you talk about because it's precious, do you mean because it's precious to me, or it's valuable, or?
Well, because I don't know. I mean, Sarah was mentioned is that you understand because it's precious. Also the phrase understanding for the sake of understanding is quite a meaningless phrase for me. I don't know what that means actually.
I don't think I said that I understand or you understand because it's precious. It's just understanding itself, which understands. The reason that in the teachings it says, like it talks about, excuse me, the 3 ways of understanding, understanding for oneself, understanding for the world and for society, or understanding just for the sake of understanding. Because it's the understanding for the sake of understanding which is to be developed and accumulated, not for oneself, but because of the value of understanding Dhamma at this moment as anatta, because only this can lead out of the cycle. When it's just understanding to have for oneself, it doesn't lead to the understanding of Dhammas as anatta.
But you just mentioned going out of the cycle. So that's understanding or something.
Understanding that understands realities now as Dhammas, as anatta, only that understanding will lead eventually to the end of the cycle of birth and death. When it's the understanding that is developed for oneself, for my understanding, so I can get everything clear and right, that is not the true understanding of Dhammas, because it's still for me.
The for me part and for the sake of understanding. I'm thinking there can be a subtle line there too. For me, if you're really go, I really need to understand, that's clearly for me. But
I just find the phrase for the sake of, like, understanding for the sake of understanding. I don't know what that means really. It's like walking for the sake of walking, or seeing for the sake of seeing. I don't know.
It just means seeing the value of understanding itself, understanding of Dhammas itself, not to get anything for oneself, not so that I have more understanding or I get this clear. It's just because of the benefit of knowing the truth of life, knowing that at this moment it is just seeing which sees, not anyone who sees, just a Dhamma which arises and passes away. So understanding the value, you could say how precious it is just to understand that truth at this moment, that no one can see, no one can control it, no one can do anything. So it's just for the purpose of understanding the truth of life, nothing else. No ulterior motives like for the benefit of other people, like one's family, or the benefit of oneself, or to be well regarded or anything else, but just because of the value of understanding the truth itself.
like I say, I think it's a subtle understanding the truth for oneself. Well, again, it's trying to tease out the difference, which is for oneself. But I'm going to conclude that the more understanding there is, the more understanding there will be of the meaning of understanding for the sake of understanding, and when that arises, or when that is the interest.
And more letting go of the clinging to oneself, like even working out now, is it for myself or is it for the benefit of understanding? That's the self-thinking like that. So
Yes,
it's the letting go of the clinging to I, who would like to know or would like to have more understanding, by seeing the value of just understanding itself, not belonging to anyone.
Yes, as soon as there's any thought or motivation of it belonging to anyone, then that's clearly not right understanding.
Right. It's just the Dharma. And in the end, it's not the Ajahns, it's not the Buddhas. It's just that reality that arises and accumulates at this moment.
But I would think these moments of understanding for the sake of understanding, or understanding because one wants something from themselves, they're subtle, and they can arise, not necessarily one after another, but one shortly following another, just like moments of kusala can arise, and before you know it, you're thinking about my kusala.
Right. So that's why it's only understanding at this very moment that can know, no matter what the story or what the topic, it's just the understanding only, not my understanding. And they're just different dharmas.
Yeah. Thank you. Helpful, very helpful.
Hi, Sarah. What you are saying is very difficult to grasp, because we do everything for the sake of myself. So when you say that we should develop understanding for the sake of non-self, it's a very hard to grasp.
And it's not even we should do anything, because it's just understanding itself, which develops very naturally by understanding more about the dharmas at this moment. So nothing to be done, nothing that I should do, because it just develops itself. So this is why it's a letting go of the burden, because I don't have to do anything, no I to do anything, no shoulds at all. Just by understanding what appears now, it develops very naturally. But it's so subtle.
And I think this is why Ajahn is constantly bringing us back to no I, no self. Even when we have all these very difficult questions, Ajahn always brings it back to this moment, no I, no me, no control. And I think that's so important. So I really appreciate those constant reminders. I think basically for me, that's the most important thing.
Right, I agree. Nothing to do, nothing to be worked out. No, I shouldn't do anything at all. Just understanding of what appears now.
And yet I'm recording, but I accidentally deleted the lot. And of course I had a little panic. Oh my God, I've lost all this stuff I could be listening to again. And, you know, that moment's gone. There is always a present moment that we can know, that wisdom can know. But no matter how hard we try.
And even at those moments of panic, like we keep losing our connection and there's dosa each time. But the panic, the dosa, the clinging, the trying to work it out, they're all just dhammas. So it's not a matter of not having the panic, not having the dosa, not having the clinging, because this is daily life. This is this moment. And there can be understanding even right then and there at the moment of panic now, or the moment of dosa, or the moment of clinging, not trying to change it or thinking it should be another way. It's daily life.
And I think there's very little of that heard anywhere else in the world, but I'd like to say here, but maybe somebody else discusses like this, but I think it is precious, very, very precious.
Well, precious is a very abstract word, I think. It can be applied to many things.
I think it just means that it's more valuable or more useful or more precious than all the other things we're used to thinking of as being good or precious in life. Like we may think it's good or precious to eat healthy food or to have enough income or to have a good roof over our heads, but the understanding for the sake of understanding is more useful, more precious, more valuable.
Yes, it has value.
For the sake of understanding or for the sake of freedom from suffering? Because for the sake of understanding still sounds like a little, I mean, it's like walking for the sake of walking. It just sounds too new age. I don't know. Just
when you say for the sake of freedom from suffering, what do you mean by suffering?
Well, suffering, I mean experience.
What experience?
Any experience, just the fact experiencing.
Any seeing, any hearing, any reality. In other words, freedom from the continuation of life in samsara. So it's the same. So
but still,
only
if I say understanding for the sake of freedom from suffering, it can always be me being safe from suffering. So the I can always be applied, no matter how you make the sentence, right?
People may have the idea that it's freedom from I having difficulties and problems in life. So then it's still for me. So when it's not just us, but it's what it says in the sutta about Dhamma for the sake of understanding Dhamma, just for the benefit of understanding the truth at this moment. That's all, not even thinking about the end of samsara or no more suffering, but what about at this moment, just understanding for the purpose of understanding right now, because this is the only moment there is in life and nothing is more precious right now than the understanding.
But I think that if there wasn't like a broader knowledge of we could say a cosmology, then then there will be no motivation for such understanding for the sake of understanding.
That's why one has to hear and consider a lot about different dhammas in order for there to be any understanding. Like if one had never heard that it's seeing now, which sees for a moment and is gone, no one there, nothing there, then it would make no sense to talk about understanding Dhamma. So to understand Dhamma, there has to be understanding of what the reality is right now. That's why one has to hear and consider quite a lot. Like even if you say to someone new, we study the Dhamma in order to understand the truth of life, it's meaningless because they have no idea what life is, no idea what truth is. So one has to come back to understand or consider what is life at this moment.
Right.
Did you want to, I asked you earlier, but you may not have been listening. Did you want to ask Ajahn directly about that point that you felt wasn't very helpful about the nothing, something, nothing, and how you felt it was different from the way she explained in Thai? I think it's a good chance to ask her directly.
But I have nothing to ask about it. I mean, I know that the translation into English of that phrase, so I don't have any question about it. Thank you.
I think it's about time anyway.
Yes, it's 6 o'clock by me. It's 2 hours after we started.
Thank you very much, Ajahn.
Thank you, Ajahn.